Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Lee Timms. I'm from Clarity. We're a marketing agency, so we're used to turning big ideas into different channels. Today, obviously, applying that to your exhibitions. So what we're hoping to do is take the opposite of the Rogues Gallery now and say, what can you do that's really creative? How can you stand out? How can you be really impactful? Can any of you remember stands that have particularly stuck in your mind? Ones that you thought, wow, that was fantastic? No? We had a couple earlier that I thought were really, really good ideas. What we're going to show you today is just a few examples of ones that we've had different interactions with, whether that's coming up with the idea, delivering the stands, and just show you what some of the principles that are going on there. And the hope of today is that what you could do is take some of those principles, apply them to your stands, and really kind of hook people onto the stand and do more business. So we went through some of the feedback earlier of some past shows. I think it could be any show that you go to. There's always quite a range, isn't there? There's always quite a piece of string that sort of says what do really, really good, effective, busy exhibition stands look like versus those that everybody walks past. So one of the reasons that people walk past is that they can just be a little bit boring sometimes. So what you want to do is think, yeah, people are all people. So what is it that can be fun? What could be interactive? What can really hook those individuals? And first and foremost, get them onto your stand so that you can have conversations. Don't let them be the people that walk past. So one example of this, and I think the biggest principle of this, is that we're used to marketing quite technical propositions. So therefore, our belief is that it doesn't matter what you do, you know, how you do it, whatever kind of integrated solution or proposition or part of the value chain that you're in, there's going to be something fun and interactive and engaging in there. What you need to do is really just kind of interrogate it to work that out, to really make it happen. So this example, it was all about water efficiency. A client ideal standards actually at EcoBuild today. Quick plug for them, check them out. This was a couple of years ago at EcoBuild. So it's all about how do we go out to specifiers, to influencers, so the architects of the world, and say, right, our products, they're able to really benefit you in aiding your water efficiency measures, lots of regulation around those sorts of things. So what we did, we came up with a big idea, and that's the first thing that I'd encourage you to do. Say, what's that theme? It doesn't necessarily need to be your whole business, everything you do, really diluted. Pick one big thing for this year and say, this is our standout message, this is what it's all about. We're going to go absolutely single-mindedly to make that happen. So we said, right, it's all about water efficiency. We turned that into a slightly nicer campaign called Water for Thought. So what was our big grab? Well, we created a big thinking man, striking a bit of a pose like that. It's about 7 foot tall. So straight away, when you get people walking up past the stand, they just kind of turn, look, they go, whoa, what's that all about? They look a little bit closer, and what you can see, so if we flick a couple back, that just the end of the man's fingers, they're all made out of recycled bottles, the whole sculpture is. So that gets them intrigued. There's a little marketing model called AIDA. So you start with A, which is get their attention, then their interest, then create desire, and then create action. So straight away we've got their attention because they're looking and thinking, I'm intrigued. What's this all about? And this is all about creating standout, and that's exactly what you need to do with your stands. I mean, people are going to think of their big creative ideas, so you need to think of yours. So they look down and they see at the bottom of the plinth there that it says that thinking man, that big sculpture, is made out of the same amount of volume as the amount of water that the average 2.4 person family in the UK uses every day. And people go, wow, that's an interesting statistic. I didn't know that. I didn't know that if you visualize it, it looks that big. So straight away we got their interest, and then they start continuing their journey into the stands, because what we're doing is we're overcoming barriers with them. And that's one of those big things, isn't it? That if we've got a barrier between our stands and the people that we're going out to, then it's easy for them to object, for them to walk on. If we've got something like this here, a bit of a creative idea, it's easier to just have a little bit of a rapport building session, and that allows us the conversations to come, and eventually those conversations will turn into problem solutions, i.e. how you can do business with each other. Really take the sentiment of what was said earlier. I think really thinking about your stand, not just as a stand on the day, but the before, during, and after. It's really, really important. So what we'll always do, what do your e-shots look like? What does your microsite, if you do one, look like? Your social campaign around it? Think about all those different channels. And just remember how your theme joins up for all those different aspects. It's really, really important. And the other great thing is that when you're thinking about those objectives mentioned earlier, think about how publicity can feature in that. And if you have a big creative thought, like this one, then you don't necessarily need to even PR it. We didn't in this example, but what happened was a lot of journalists, different individuals came to the show. They said, wow, you know, what's that all about? That's really cool. But straight away, they're putting it in the front covers, the centre spreads, are very relevant trade press. So that can only help you to do more business after the show as well. And then obviously the whole point about following up, make sure you do, please. Okay, so we've got quite a big brand in there, haven't we, that we're referencing. Not everyone's budget stretched that far, absolutely, and people have got different types of stands as well. So, I mean, the question's only fair to say, isn't that sort of approach, that big campaign, that big idea, just for organisations that are going to throw a lot of money at these sorts of things? I would say absolutely not. Ideas don't need to cost anything at all. Sometimes you can have an agency like ourselves come up with ideas for you, fantastic, but equally, every one of you and your teams are very, very capable of just really interrogating those thoughts about that big single-minded message that you want to get out there and just turning that into something that just really resonates with your target audience. So make sure that you do challenge that, and you can do an awful lot with not a lot. So one example was that a couple of years ago, we were engaged by Heather, and one of her responsibilities is Barber, the safety information. So they already had a stand at this point that was put in place. You know, lots of good things going on. They've got demo areas, lots of the relevant things that you need to do. We had a conversation at the time, and I mean, these guys have just got so creative since then. They're doing fantastic, fantastic things. But we had a conversation at the time that said, okay, hang on a second, how are we going to get people onto your stand? So we said, right, do you know what? Let's just put a little bit of time in to come up with a big idea. And what we did, because it's all about safety information, the fact that these guys really just aid knowledge in the safety arena, we came up with a mastermind challenge. That was good on a few levels because they've got all the assets in the UBM, such as the audience, SHP, the competition prizes that we could put to it, but also because they're all about knowledge, it's not just a gimmick, it's a really, really relevant theme that spans, you know, the whole campaign around this. And when people come onto the stand, they're just participating, they're getting really interactive, they're having a good time, and that was really successful for them. And that kind of creative thinking, they applied it last year on a stand, really successful, and it keeps building. It needn't cost a lot. The idea in that case was about a day of our time, a few £100. After that, I think they spent something in the region, about £2,500, to actually implement that. But that can be the tip of the iceberg. It can be the thing that you don't necessarily throw that much extra at your idea, but actually, oh my God, it's the thing that brings all your leads into the stand and makes all the difference in terms of your ROI. So sometimes spend that little bit more just to make sure that it's really successful. So a little bit of a commonality with all the things that we're talking about is add a little bit of theatre. And I think whatever it is, you know, so grab one of my business cards later on and I'll show you what I'm talking about. You can apply it to any material, anything that you do, your campaign, your stand. Just make sure it's different, make sure it stands out, make sure people remember you. And we think that's all about theatre. So it could be the shape of your stand, for instance. So this one, we've got lots of big curves, we've got lots of arches. In this instance, it's reflecting the contours of the seabed. We've got a big printed floor that kind of puts that in perspective. You could do it with people. So often on stands, we've got things like gymnasts or dancers or things that bring this to life. Because we were talking thematically about strength, flexibility, endurance, in this instance, we had gymnasts, and they were kind of building strong shapes and what have you. It was really good. It puts on a little bit of a show. You've got 50-odd people at any one time watching these sessions. Fantastic. You know, they're all people that you've broken down the barriers from. You can start having conversations. You can start to do business. Another one, we got some guys off of, I think it's Britain's Got Talent or something. Two of them were bouncing this football between them, doing all these skills and what have you. Really demonstrated this message of partnership that we were talking about, this particular stand. And again, just allow people to interact. Okay, so you've got a blank stand. You might be given a shell scheme, you might have just space only. You've probably hired in some furniture, some AV, some electrics. What's missing? What needs to be on there? We've spoken about the big idea, but what else do you need to apply? Any thoughts? Well, let me just give you a couple of my own. One is your brand. We touched on it earlier, We think it's really important that people can recognise you one way or another. So just make sure that it looks the part. Obviously, everything you do is a representation of your business, your personal brands, but also your organisation and where that sits in the market. Make sure it looks professional, sleek, and what have you. I think the other is the USP, and that's by saying, let's take this creative thought, let's take the theme and just apply that in such a way that you're really gaining ground, you're gaining difference, you're gaining standout. So an example for you. So what do people think about a stay at Premier Inn? We do a lot of their communications, so please be nice. What are you left with when you wake up the next morning? How should you be feeling? Any ideas? Rested, relaxed, absolutely. So, I mean, if we take that as a starting point of a thought for a stand that we did for them, absolutely, that might be one of the things that we pull out as the key point. So in this example of this stand, didn't need to throw an awful lot of budget at it. We've got big bean bags there. They represent a little bit like the mattresses that they've got. We've got masseuses, they're relaxing people. We've got some music on there that's just soothing, some soothing environments. So we're expecting people to walk away from a short stint at this stand, rested, relaxed. It's reflecting their good night guarantee. It's really bringing out some of the themes that they do every day. And it's branded, it looks like their business, it's what you expect, and it's creating great experiences for them. The other thing that I'd say is just try not to make it too sort of one way. Make sure it's interactive. So give people reasons to interact with your stand, to be part of it. So all those things we were talking about, quizzes, what have you, fantastic. Demos can be really great. So actually having, I don't know, for instance, there's a couple of fan kits there that are demonstrating insulation, so one type versus another and how effective it can be. You can push the buttons, you can fiddle with it. People enjoy doing that. Having some nice touchscreens fitted so you can work through, quizzes, video games, all sorts of content at your own pace, right through to very kind of simple museum type dynamics. It's really important. But we've only got 10 minutes, so what we're doing is we're making sure that we're moving through an awful lot of things quite quickly. We've got lots of ways that we're able to bring things to life. One way is manually, you can have people do sports and what have you interacting. You can have arts and crafts, demo type activities. Augmented reality, I mean, that's a shot from the IKEA brochure. That's a fantastic one, and it's really good. Product demos, really, really important. So actually having your kit there, being able to see what it looks like, what you get, all those sorts of things, very important. Take those themes, apply them to your big creative idea, and you'll come up with something really fantastic. So what we've been doing in the last session, and I'll offer today as well, is just if any of you want 30 minutes just to go through what could your big idea, what could some of those thoughts be that we play out on your stand, come and grab me, give you a card, and just we'll get that scheduled. Thank you very much.